Well, to discuss the game, I'm pleased to be joined from London by Rob Harris. He's a sports correspondent at the Associated Press. Welcome to France 24, sir. Thanks for joining us. What did you make of Italy's victory last night then? Was it a well-deserved one?
Well, it was ultimately because England did not build on from their perfect platform that they got themselves into. The fact that they scored inside 2 minutes from Luke Shaw, it made Italy look rattled. You thought actually they were going to be completely overwhelmed by England with the help of the home crowd packed into Wembley. But actually, England were pretty timid. They didn't try to go forward in an attacking sense to try to get that second goal. And then in the second half, it allowed Italy to get back into the game, to reassert themselves on England. And it was something particularly the England manager, Gareth Southgate, was lamenting after the game, which was their inability to keep hold of the ball, whereas actually Italy started to look really comfortable. And you saw now why they are on this 34-match unbeaten run, going back all the way to September 2018. It's no fluke. This shows the sort of strength of this side, the veterans like Chiellini helping in the moments that are perhaps most difficult in a team, most challenging when you're in a final. They really showed their strength through to be able to carry themselves to victory. And England, many questions over the substitutions, particularly of Gareth Southgate, when he chose to make them, when he didn't choose to make them, and ultimately decisions that will probably be scrutinised for many years to come for a country like England that now only has that one major title in 1966, for Italy a second European title, the first since '68, of course, to go alongside their 4 world titles too.
And what a poignant moment that was for England's manager, Gareth Southgate. It was 25 years since he personally missed that penalty in the semi-finals against Germany. Now, the team that he leads have lost again on penalties. He was speaking about that after the game. Let's have a listen to a little of Gareth Southgate.
We win and lose as a team, and the penalty takers are my call. You know, we've worked on them in training. That's my decision. That's not down to the players. And tonight it hasn't gone for us. But we know they were the best takers that we had left on the pitch. We tried to get those players onto the pitch. We'd already had to take a couple off during the game itself.
Gareth Southgate there. And Rob Harris, Southgate taking a degree of personal responsibility for what happened at the end of the match. How much scrutiny do you think that there'll be on his decision-making there, his decision to bring on some players just for penalties, even though they hadn't played at all during the match?
Yeah, the fact he brought on Sancho and Rashford for the penalties, basically right at the end of extra time, which could have looked like a masterstroke. He's bringing on specialist penalty takers, but actually they'd been sitting down for most of the game. They weren't into the game. Rashford had to play it right back for a few moments because of Kyle Walker going off, which he actually managed to handle pretty well, obviously a striker normally, and he ensured that obviously Italy did not get any late goal in extra time. And it is the agony of the penalty. And I think, England have gone through it so many times. They went out of Euro 2012 to Italy in the quarterfinals on penalties. They did look like they might have finally shaken off this penalty curse when they beat Colombia in a shootout at the World Cup in 2018 to reach the quarterfinals. But this was more of a reminder of those shootout defeats to Germany in the 1990 World Cup semi-final, the one Southgate himself endured, missing the final spot kit in the Euro 96 semi-final against Germany. And it's probably why he certainly felt the pain of his players, and he particularly went over to console them. He consoled Bukayo Saka at just 19, who took on the responsibility of taking the fifth penalty that was ultimately missed, and perhaps shows his strength of character to actually be able to step up in such a pressurised environment. And there's been very much a keenness of Southgate to say, look, he chose the penalty takers. It was his decision over which order they were, and it ultimately lies on him. And very much one of the things the England team have been talking about in the last few hours is their absolute shock and abhorrence, the fact that some of the penalty takers, Saka, Rashford and Sancho, have faced racist abuse on social media. It's been a grim thing that so many black players have had to face for far too long online, on Instagram and on Twitter. And it's something that the Football Association of England this morning is again pushing the social media companies to eradicate and to take action to prevent happening in future. So a moment that is a sporting moment. A penalty lottery is not something that is used to send abhorrent racist abuse.
Yeah, Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, speaking about that today as well on Twitter. Just finally, though, Rob Harris, I suppose optimists in England may say, well, look, it's only a year until the World Cup. What do you make of that kind of language? Do you think it's too early to think about that, or is it time for England to turn their eyes towards Qatar?
There was always a sense at previous tournament defeats, particularly with the so-called golden generation through the 2000s, that there was always a sense there's always the next tournament, and that always just fell away from them as they only ever reached quarterfinals. It does look different this time because there is progression. The fact is at Euro 2016, they were humiliated in the last 16 by Iceland going out. But then 2018 World Cup, getting all the way through to the semi-finals, their first World Cup semi-final since 1990. And now going a step further, reaching a final, the first final in 55 years. And with a youthful side. So the sense is actually they are well placed to move forward to Qatar. And because of all the pandemic changes to the calendar, it's now, only 15 months or so away, November 2022. So a really sort of short turnaround with players who have got their youth in them. And Southgate, perhaps more time to reflect. Southgate himself is backed by the Football Association. They see him as a leader of the team for many years to come, and has showed those leadership qualities, not only on the pitch, but also off the pitch. But there will be perhaps some questions over some of his tactics through the tournament and his substitutions, whether or not he's not bold enough in terms of making some of them early enough. But the fact is, his decisions had carried England all the way through to the final, which gave him some leeway to be able to make those decisions. But it's a big responsibility being the England manager, especially a manager of a team that hasn't won a trophy for so long. But I suppose ultimately today is a day about Italian celebrations. Italy, who didn't even qualify for the last World Cup in 2018, now champions of Europe for a second time.
Rob Harris from the Associated Press in London, thank you very much indeed for your analysis today on the programme.